Welcome to the Third Row Tesla podcast. My name is Safian Fraval. Today we have two special guests. I'm going to introduce our crew and then let you meet our guests. So we have Kristen, K10, next to me.
Hello.
Thank you, Kristen. And we got Omar Kazi, Tesla Truth.
Boom.
And then we got Viv remotely. How you doing, Viv?
Hey.
Thanks, Viv. And then we got our special guest today. So we've got two. They both happen to be related to each other, just by chance, I guess. We've got Maye Musk and Tosca Musk. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Excellent.
Very nice to be here.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Great to have you.
Yes.
So we thought we'd talk a little bit about Plantaseedday.
As Kimball would say, we're very excited about Plantaseedday, March 19th. Very excited about Plantaseedday.
Yes, and how about
Very excited about Plantaseedday.
And for the future of Tesla.
I'm very excited about the future of Tesla, but I'm really here to talk about Plantaseedday,
March 19th.
March 19th.
we're going to start with a nice shirt, and it says Plantaseedday. All right.
Well, it's very.
And this isn't a
It's
giveaway
super-
because you guys aren't going to be able to have this.
Nah, you don't get it.
And more vegetables.
Now, as I'm a dietitian, I always think people should have eat more vegetables.
And I've got my little kit ready.
gonna be
And I'm
planting
going to
tomatoes.
be doing tomatoes. And this is the fruit that we eat as a vegetable. Well, I'm going to give it a try because I definitely need to set an example. So I also have a bag that they gave me. Again, I don't think you get it. Plant, grow, eat. And that's what it's about. So what we're doing is we want you to challenge your friends to plant a seed on March the 19th. And it's Kimball, he had this, we grew up in hard times, but we always had plenty of fruit and vegetables. So he felt that all children should have it. And then when he started Big Green, that was building vegetable and fruit gardens and underserved schools. And he has nearly 700 gardens planted already. So these children who go to these schools will not only grow their own vegetables, but they will then prepare them and eat them. So that's a really good start for a healthier America.
It's also really great how they use a lot of, they have a curriculum, an education curriculum that goes with the planting of seeds. So I did it last year with my kindergarten class. I have young kids, and so I went and I helped with the kindergarten class and took them through all these different ways of how you plant seeds. And if you look at the various seed packages that you get, you have to see that some seeds are planted 1 inch apart and some seeds are planted 6 inches apart. And so just going in there and working with your kids and creating, what we did was we took long pieces of string, knitting thread, and then little beads, and you would just create these little beads 1 inch apart. And it's a great tool for your kids to learn how to count and how to learn spacing. And then you use that and you go out and you lay it down on your bed, and you are able to just, you know exactly where you're going to plant those seeds. It's quite a fun way of learning how to plant.
So can people get that shirt somewhere?
I don't know about the shirt. I'm kind of privileged, so I do get gifts like this from Big Green. So I think there's a plantaseedday.org, and then if you pledge a certain amount, I think these are for large donors for Big Green. But other than that, I think you can get seeds for free or even for $5. They'd like you to donate $5, but otherwise they would give you seeds for free so that you can plant your own seeds.
But the pledges really go towards being able to install a lot of these gardens into the underserved schools. So the more we can help to contribute towards the Big Green, the more that we can actually go and teach other people how to do it. Some of us are maybe a little bit more privileged and have the ability to go and buy our own seeds, and that just gives us the fortunate position to be able to help others.
Yes.
So the idea is just get some seeds, March 19th, plant something.
Absolutely.
And then watch them grow, and it gives you joy. And the funny thing is, when I go to these schools, I went to one in Compton, one in Hawthorne, Memphis, and what happens is you see these children when they pull the the vegetables out of the ground, or they pick the tomatoes or strawberries, they just get so excited, and it's so great to see them excited about fruits and vegetables. And of course, then they're taught how to clean them and how to eat them and prepare them, and they just love them. And of course, it makes sense because it's just freshly grown and ripe and tasty.
Yeah, there's something special about having food, especially if it's in your backyard, and then it connects the kids with the food.
Absolutely. You know, Kimball and the Big Green tend, as my mom mentioned, tend to go into more underserved communities where some of these children have just never even seen a fruit or a vegetable, and so the idea is to introduce them to the fruit and vegetable world, because when we can show where the food comes from and we can grow it and we can nurture it and then pick it, then we taste it and we realize how flavorful and wonderful it is. But I think another wonderful thing that he does, or that the Big Green does, is that they also help to use these learning gardens to create commerce. So a lot of these students, these older students, might harvest the vegetables and then create their own farmers market. So now kids who were maybe a little bit more at risk are finding another potential career. We can actually earn money by growing fruits and vegetables, which is wonderful.
Yes, I must say I grew up very privileged because my parents were from the Canadian prairies and my dad's family were all farmers. So our backyard was full of fruits and vegetables and fruit trees and mulberry trees. That's
great.
Got you full of purple color.
Always. It's awesome.
Yes.
But they also, my grandmother also had these tortoises, like really old tortoises in the backyard, and so we learned composting from a very young age because she just had this big bucket. So every time you have a fruit or vegetable, eggs or whatever it is, you just throw it in the bucket, and then she would send it out and give it to the tortoise.
Yes, because they went through the Canadian Depression, so they know that you don't always have the luxury of eating fruits and vegetables, and so I had to go, before dinner I would go and dig up the potatoes or pick the green beans or whatever they were growing, and it was for dinner that night, and that's what I did.
Yeah, your parents seem like really interesting people. I was just reading your book, A Woman Makes a Plan, about how they used to take you in airplanes and look for lost cities. And do you think that kind of spirit of adventure kind of carried down, into your own family as well?
Well, they take a lot of fear out of our lives. Don't you think my parents were very brave? They went through very dangerous times, and because, of course, when we went across the Kalahari Desert, they would have only a compass. There was no GPS or anything. And we would go 3 weeks across the desert, and on the one end, we would let them know we're going, and so they had the camel patrol ready to come and search for us if we weren't on the other end in 3 weeks. And with 5 small kids, off we go, and wake up early when the daylight, and we go to bed when it's nighttime, and there were animals everywhere, animals all the time. Hyenas and lions would come into the camp. Hyenas are scarier than lions, just so you know. So we grew up there, but we didn't have fear as children because my parents were so careful with us, So it's my dad saying, live dangerously, carefully. Yeah.
So you guys grew up eating from farm to table, it sounds like.
Yes.
You'd go out. How big was the garden? Do they have a big garden there?
Yeah, it was, it was big, but
Yes.
I was small, so everything seemed much bigger, right? I'm like, was it an acre? I don't know, I was 8.
Yeah, maybe half an acre. They had a big backyard, and it was all fruits, vegetables, composting.
Yeah.
At some stage we had chickens, and so we would have to get the eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there were a lot more. I'm like, my mom's twin sister, my aunt lived next door, and she had monkeys and all sorts of things.
Really? Monkeys?
We had a lot of animals.
From where? Just locally?
Yeah, they had pet monkeys.
That's crazy.
Africa.
Yeah. But even when we went to live in Durban, we had monkeys.
Yeah, we didn't actually have monkeys. There were monkeys that lived in our yard, and they were dangerous. But there were friends who were down the street who had that little monkey that was in their house. Do you remember Candida's?
Yeah.
Like this little monkey. There was nothing. You'd just be sitting here, and this little monkey would just be running around the house. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, the monkeys that were coming into our house, they were dangerous because they would bite you. So they would take our food as well. So we always had to keep the windows closed.
Would they go into your garden and take anything?
Yeah. I mean, they were really in our garden. So the edge of our garden was a forest, and that's where all the monkeys lived. And then every now and then, if you left a window open with a bowl of fruit anywhere, they would just come to your window and take the fruit. And so we had our doors closed a lot.
Yes.
Anytime we were near fruit, any food, any food at all.
So your love for fruit and vegetables passed down to your children. Kimball, he has memories of the farm, I'm assuming, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kimball, he's just a naturally good eater. And I wasn't a great cook. I'm still not a great cook. And he just started cooking for us.
Yeah, if we wanted to eat anything other than bean stew, we
Peanut butter sandwiches.
Kimball cooked.
How young was he when he started making you food?
He was about 12, was
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like the initiative. That's really cool.
So that's really interesting how kind of this passion for real food came down through your grandparents to your kids. I mean, do you see that as something that's realistic for an average American to actually make food in their backyard? And as a nutritionist, do you think, that has benefits versus buying food at the store?
Well, the thing is now with plantaseedday, you can do that. I mean, even in my apartment, I will just plant seeds. I think we should make more of an effort to do that because it will bring us joy. We need more joy in our lives.
Even on an apartment, the terrace, people can just put tomato plants.
Exactly.
Easily. Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to be doing one in I have a very small courtyard garden, and so if it wasn't for the rains right now, we would have already built it, but we have this whole plan with the kids to prepare the whole garden for plantaseedday next week, and have a number of different seedlings and arugula, lettuce, all these things which really encourage my 7-year-olds to eat food, eat fruits and vegetables. They're good with fruit because fruit is sweet, but now my son is a big fan of arugula. That's his thing.
So it teaches the children to be closer to the ground, to love the earth more, and to tend for it. You guys are seeing children that are loving eating vegetables more after taking care of the vegetables.
Yes. Well, yeah. And it's also children taste bitter more than adults do. They have more taste buds per square millimeter, and so that's why they taste the bitterness. But then, if you grow it yourself, it's less bitter. And if you add some oil or cook it or salt to it, it does decrease the bitterness.
That is nice. Are all the schools composting with the gardens?
Actually, that's a very good question. I think composting would be a great thing, but I don't know if you can actually do that in schools.
Maybe legally, the laws.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there is laws about cracking eggs and things like that.
Yeah,
They're interesting laws.
I'm sure there are. Yeah.
But I want to emphasize that when you plant a seed, you've got to #plantaseedday, because last year we did Plantaseedday and 1.2 million people did that hashtag.
Wow.
And we want 10 million people to do it now.
We're going to break the records this year.
Yes.
Let's do
Yes.
it.
We got it
Plantaseedday.
#plantaseedday.
Very cool. Yeah, we planted a whole area of which just blossomed and all this fruit and veggies and stuff. My son grew this watermelon that was literally this big. I'll see if I put a picture up of it. He's just like holding the watermelon.
That will encourage kids. I mean, that watermelon is great.
And we ate it too, and it was delicious.
Yes.
I think so. What are your kids' favorite things that have grown besides the arugula?
So arugula for my son. My daughter also loved watermelon. We did that last year, and then we did zucchini.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Zucchini,
so they
fun.
were just really quite impressed with how it grows quite quickly, or it grew
And then
quite
it can
quickly.
get really big.
Yeah.
In our household, we're a vegan household, so we take zucchini and you turn it into spaghetti.
Yes,
and it's
of
actually
course.
such a low-calorie type dish. It looks like spaghetti, and it kind of tastes the same sort of thing. So it's
They also really liked cherry tomatoes because they're sweeter and they taste really yummy right off the vine. So they enjoyed that. And it's exciting and it's colorful, so it's one of those things that just sort of appeal to them. Almost like, oh, here's a strawberry. Oh, here's a tomato. It's cool.
So they're moving, they have about 800, 700 schools.
They have over 750, but they're aiming for 1,000.
So is it different states they're just working?
Yes. They do 100 gardens in a city because they need a team then to go into the schools and help the the students to plant.
So if I was a parent or a teacher like in Minnesota and I wanted to see it come to my school, is there a petition place on the online that I can?
In Minneapolis, all right, then you would contact Big Green and just say, how do you do that? And then I guess you would get a reply, something like you need to have sponsors to cover the costs of doing it. And you often do get sometimes, like I know in Chicago, the mayor was very excited about it. And that's why then they get funding, and they get funding from corporations or they get funding from the municipalities.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so people can look on the website and get a lot of information.
Yes, lots of photos and a lot of information.
Oh, good. It's just catching on because last year was the first Plant a Seed Day, right?
It was the
Yes.
first one. We just took a chance, and then I had to go to a fashion event in Doha in Qatar, and the woman says to me, "You are on NBC, Plant a Seed Day. We planted seeds," and I said, "NBC is in Doha, you know." Yes, it is, and they went out and planted seeds.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Wow,
wonderful.
So it goes worldwide.
Yeah.
Wow, that would be excellent.
And
to
your
see it go
podcast
worldwide.
will be worldwide
for sure.
too.
Yeah.
That's easy.
For everyone who's watching, no matter where you are in the world, Plant a Seed Day, March 19th, right?
March
March
19th.
19th, Plant a Seed Day.
Use the hashtag Plant a Seed Day. We're trying to break records this year.
Yep.
Yes.
It really is an incredibly fun activity to do with your kids. So if you have kids, it's just fun. Do it and just as a bonding exercise with your kids. So just a little thing. So that's one thing to do with your kid on March 19th, Plant a Seed Day. But even then, just for yourself, you're like, I'm not sure I have the green thumb. What should I do? You know, get a basil plant, get anything easy that you're able to just keep in your home and plant it and just see how it grows. You'll actually be really inspired to grow more things.
Very true. Or even the green onions, right? You can just you can keep the ends of the green onions.
I haven't tried
Stick
that
it-
yet.
When you get the green onions, you can chop off the top and use that, and you just stick the root part in like a paper towel, and it'll
Excellent.
Great.
it'll
Thank
start
you.
growing more
There
green
you
onions.
go.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Good to know.
Yeah, so maybe moving on to a different topic. May, I was just reading your book recently, and it's just such an amazing story. How did you decide to kind of put your memoirs into a book, or where did that come from?
Well, there's my book. And if my cover looks better than me, it's because there was a huge team getting it together. Probably some retouching there too.
You always look good.
Lift it higher.
Lift it higher. Oh, okay. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, film director daughter. And what happens is that, I'm very active on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and
We love your Twitter.
and Instagram, and then I would just make comments, and people kept on saying, "You've got to make a book. You've got to you've got to write a book. You've got to write a book." And this literary agent from Toronto, she was trying to get me to write a book by contacting my team, who weren't really that interested. And eventually, she convinced them. It took her nearly 2 years to convince them to meet me.
Wow.
So then she came and met me, and she was just the loveliest Sally Harding, lovely lady.
Nice.
And she's a Canadian New Zealander. You can't get nicer people than that. And so then she just Penguin Random House, Viking, they wanted to publish my book. So I dictated my life, really, my life's lessons from childhood to now. And then they wanted me to give advice in every section of my life, and so then I did that, and then I gave it to the editor at Viking Books, and I said, look, there's some sad times, let's just take those out, because I didn't really want to share that much. I don't share it with anyone. And they said, no, you better keep the sad times in too. And actually all three of my kids said, you've got to talk about your struggles, because Kimball was saying you struggled a lot. You need to talk about that too. And so I did, and they kept it in. And you can't believe how many women and men relate, because many men have read my book and said how much, especially the business side, the entrepreneurship side, they learned some lessons from that, and they're going to make a plan. So they're going to make a plan. So that's how it came about, and I'm very excited about it. And the reviews are good, and
it's a
people
great
are
book.
buying it.
So
Yeah.
there was one part of the book, I was actually listening to the audio version, and thank you so much for doing that with your own voice, so we can actually listen to you if we buy
I
the audiobook.
insisted on using my own
So
voice.
good.
I didn't see how anyone else could read my book.
It would have been
Yeah.
different.
It would have been
seemed right.
different, yeah.
It would have been. But there's a part in there, you were talking about how Elon had listened to it, and he gave you some feedback. And then you went and you changed some things. Was it this book or was it
No,
an earlier
this was
book?
my book that I wrote in 1996, and he was a student at Wharton at the time.
That was pretty cool, though.
Yeah, the other book, and that was also, I gave a talk, because I give talks more than write, and a publisher in Toronto, while we were living in Canada, had me write the book. And so the first book, and I said, well, I love talking nutrition, so I thought I would talk about the Krebs cycle and the essential nutrients in the periodic tables. I mean, I'm sure people are thrilled with that. So then I went to visit Elon in Philadelphia, and then we took the train to New York. That was the big treat, to go to New York by train. And we sat there by the Rockefeller Center, actually, and I said, look at my book, this is what I'm going to write about. And he said, this is so boring. and so then he said, why are you seeing 25 clients a day? I said, well, I guess I improve their eating habits, and then I also make sure they have a good workout routine. And he said, that's what you put in your book. So then when I returned to my office, I said to my clients, I'm not going to use your name, but the questions you ask, just tell me why you come to see me every week to change your eating habits. They said, it's not only changing my eating habits, but you also help us dress better, and you tell us to stand up, and you tell us to smile and be happier, and you just give us more confidence. So that's why I brought in confidence and self-esteem and appearance, so that you look good. If you look good, you can eat better. If you feel good about yourself. And that's why I'd given a talk at Kellogg's, and I'd spoken about that too, and that's why I was the first dietitian to be on a cereal box.
I saw that
that was
picture.
Isn't that cool?
That is
really
really
awesome.
cool. Did your kids have Kellogg's after that?
So I was 16, and a very typical 16-year-old girl, would go out to the grocery stores go anywhere with friends. You go in the grocery store and you see your mom on a Kellogg's cereal box, and I'd be like, "Hey, that's my mom," and they were like, "No, that is not your mother. That's not possible." I'm like, "No, that really is my mom. That's my mom." They're like, "No, that's nice."
But it's so funny. I never kept the modeling and the nutrition together. I always kept them separately. But I remember Elon said he was lining up in Kingston, Ontario, when he was just started there at Queen's University, and there was a Bank of Montreal poster up there with my picture on it. And he looked at that, and he was lining up with people, and he said, "Oh, that's my mum." And everybody looked at him as if to say, this guy needs friends.
Right?
I mean, that's not true. I mean, really, that's beyond crazy. So
Yeah, but you were on a lot of, because at that point she was that time in Toronto. You were you also did like a dental ad, and so you were on every bus stop, and we took a lot of public transportation, and so it'd be like, "There's my mom." "Oh no, there's my mom." And every time, anybody that I was with would be like, your mother is not every blonde that's on every picture. You're like, no, seriously, that is my mom, and everywhere.
I like the story in your book where you said you went to get a loan at one of the department stores.
Yes.
And they said no, and
you're building your credit.
and you turned around and you
Store
said,
card.
that's me in the picture.
On the poster in the office. And so then I got my credit card, my first credit card at a department store. Because anyone who changes countries knows if you don't have a credit rating, you don't get a credit
Start
card.
from zero.
Nothing, yeah.
Yeah, and it was the same when I moved to San Francisco, first of all, in the Bay Area. I had to keep my Canadian credit card because I had long last had one. I couldn't get one in America. And so Elon and Kimball had signing rights on my card so that they could use my credit card. And then even when they sold Zip2, nobody would give them a credit card, because they didn't have a credit rating. So it took a while for me to get one too.
So one story I have to ask you about is when Elon first decided he wanted to go to Canada and try and pursue his interest there, and Tosca wanted to go too, and you said that you were in Canada, and when you came back, she was 15, and she had sold your house and your car and all
You
your
didn't even tell her,
belongings?
right?
Such a good story.
No, I didn't
so
tell.
cool.
Well, so I really wanted to go. Elon left in June, and then so like maybe a month later, I sat down with my mom and I was like, okay, we should move to Canada too. And she's like, great. I'm gonna get my PhD, or I'm gonna finish something. We're gonna get our PhD, and so we can leave in the next 5 to 10 years. I'm like, listen, 5 to 10 years. I'm 25. I can do whatever I want at that point. So how about we go now? And she's like, well, let me go and visit Elon. We'll go and travel around Canada and see if there's any places that we want to live. And so she went initially to Vancouver. And like, Vancouver's lovely, it rains a lot here, it reminds me of Cape Town, we're probably not going to move here. I'm like, okay. And then she goes to Montreal, she's like, oh, Montreal's cool, it's just like New York, but everyone speaks French, we're probably not going to move here. Then she goes to Toronto, and she's like, oh, Toronto's just like Johannesburg, it looks really great, this is where we'd move. So I was like, great. So I took that as in we're moving, and a friend of mine's parents were real estate agents, so I said, hey, our house is up for sale, and would you like to represent it? And they were like, great, yeah. And then at the same time, my other very good friends, she had a lot of friends that were leaving Iran, and they were moving to South Africa, and they didn't have anything. So I said, oh, conveniently, everything in our house is for sale. and so while she was away, I brought them all in, and I sold everything except for a few things that I thought, I was like, my mom probably wants to keep that, like her bed. And so, but yeah, I did sell everything in the house, like her crystal, for very little.
It happened so quickly because we were only away for 3 or 4 weeks. You sold a lot.
Do not show this story to my children. But yeah, and then I couldn't test drive the car, so the final thing was her selling the car at the end. But I had a number of people ready to buy it.
Because you had no license, right?
And I had no license. I didn't know how to drive. And so everything. My mom just had to come back and sign all the paperwork. But yeah, I'd sold everything in the house at that point.
But that's so cool that you
back on
actually
November
signed
11th.
the paperwork.
Yeah, she came back on November 11th, and we left the country December 11th.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I had not much to pack.
So this is such a cool point that you actually let your kids, you empower them, and you listen to them.
Perhaps a little too much, I think, at that point.
You said you weren't mad at her.
No.
So that's kind of interesting. I would think most parents, if they come home and their 15-year-old daughter has sold their house, they might be a little bit upset, but
But that's what I mean. You, the way you brought up your kids, you encourage them to be responsible, take initiative, take action, and not stop them when they're going on their own direction. So,
Well, I think also my mother is very much so. We are a team. Everything's about we are a family. We're very close. We're a very close family, and so everything we do is as a team. So and every one of our team members has the best intention for everyone else. So when you are brought up that way, then you can't really be mad at someone for making the best decision for the team.
Is this what you learned from your dad? Just because you guys were flying and always tight, right?
Yes, we were very close. And even, funny enough, even my 2 brothers and my twin sister, when they read my book, they said, we didn't know you had such an abusive marriage. And I said, I never told anybody, and it seems like women don't tell anyone. So they learned about that, but we're all very close still, Yeah, but with our family, the thing is, when I came back and everything was sold, it kind of made sense that why should we delay it? She had a point, and we might as well leave.
Yeah, it was the right time in South Africa to leave as well, and we had family, distant family in Canada, but we had the ability to leave because we were Canadian because of my mother, and there was I was really not that interested in finishing high school in South Africa, and so I was like, off we go. And then Kimball finished high school, and then he came afterwards.
Yeah.
what was it that really made you want to go, follow Elon and, take your family to North America?
I mean, a number of things. I didn't want to study Afrikaans anymore. That was as a teenager. That's not the language I wanted to spend much time doing. Sorry. But Elon is not a bad person to follow at the end of the day. He always seems to have some good ideas. And I'm like, that seems like a good one. I'm going to follow you. But I actually said to my mom, I think at one point I said, listen, if you don't want to move, totally fine. I'm moving to Canada. I'm going to move in with Elon. And she's like, you can't do that. So I said, oh, yes. Yes, I can. So I was like, okay.
Did you ever imagine you'd be in Hollywood directing movies?
Well, in Hollywood. That's way over there. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. So basically, I started at the age of 5 with the idea that I would always be in film or theater or the arts in that regard. So it's just always been my goal. And so, yes.
Remember when you were studying drama?
Yeah.
And then your teacher wanted to stop the classes?
When we were in South Africa?
Yes.
Yes, and so the teacher of the drama society wanted to stop the classes. And so I took over the drama classes.
Really?
And I taught it for the
Amazing.
school.
How old were you?
I was like 11 or 12.
Wow.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and then what about the Alliance Française? Yeah, we went to study French.
Because we had to speak French fluently to live in Canada.
Which is not true, but anyway.
But that was like, if we're going to move to Canada, we need to speak French. All right, great. And so of course, we did learn French. We had studied it for quite a while before that as well. But then, so the school puts on these great big performances, and they needed somebody that could perform, but nobody was really an actor. So my mom
An opera
volunteered
singer. They
me.
wanted a French opera singer.
Yeah. And so my mom volunteered me.
I'm
and-
in the senior class, she's in the junior class.
Yeah. And she's like, does she speak French? No, but she will learn. And I was like, and I did.
And so then our class had her in this, Marie Antoinette
Yeah.
art gown, golden gown, and singing in French. And so we won, our class won, and they said, but it's not fair, you brought in a professional singer. And then, of course, when she took it all off, they said, oh my gosh, she's the junior, she's the most junior person there. Then you were 14?
Yeah.
Yeah.
14 as a performer. So I started in theatre more as a performer, and then ended up being more interested in the backstage and the mechanics of how theatre is done. So worked for a Shakespearean theatre company in Toronto, and then started working at a studio at 18 while doing film school at UBC, and then basically just went into more of the behind the scenes and the business and directing and producing.
The passion's been there the whole time.
Yeah.
Always,
okay.
yeah.
Love it.
So it's Passionflix.
And
Yeah,
so that's why we have
that's
Passionflix.
But even when she wanted to be an intern at a film studio, and they don't pay, you see. So I said, well, you go there for 3 weeks, and then you say you're going to go leave to get a paid job. Well, they wouldn't let her leave. You see, and then they started paying her. Yeah.
Actually, I only had to do 2 weeks.
Oh,
I did
2
2
weeks.
weeks of
Okay.
the volunteering. I was like, but I actually did have to go because we all had to pay for university ourselves. When we went to school, we had to get our own student loans and make our way. And so during the summers, as much as I would have just loved to have volunteered on film sets and been supported by my hardworking single mother, I couldn't. I had to earn an income so I could pay for school.
So it's kind of interesting what you're doing now with Passionflix, in a way you're kind of, disrupting the, romance novel film kind of hallmark
Yeah.
movie. Like, can you talk a little bit about kind of how you got started with Passionflix and how that works?
Sure, yeah. So Passionflix is a streaming platform that's focused specifically on taking the romance novel genre and turning it into movies and series. So we're 99% woman.
Nice.
And you guys actually produce the movies yourself.
We do. So we take it from soup to nuts. So we option the novels, we adapt the novels, we work very closely with the authors, and then we produce the movies and distribute. So we control distribution as well, which is very unusual in the film industry. And we're in 150 countries. So you can see us in Germany. We actually have a very strong German fan base. We have Passionflix
cool.
Germany. Yeah, yeah.
So you want to tell people how people find your platform? And
Yeah, so we're
watch
at
your-
passionflix.com, and we're on Amazon, Roku. We launch on Comcast Xfinity today. We're iOS, Android, Apple TV. Will be Samsung Tizen in the next month or so. So you can pretty much find us anywhere that you can find internet. But we're very similar to like Netflix, but we're a niche platform.
So you guys will actually take the movie, produce it, put it on your own distribution platform. People can sign up, kind of like Netflix.
Exactly.
And so did you kind of, your family is obviously huge in technology. Did that kind of influence your thinking about, producing movies versus actually running the distribution platform yourself?
Yeah, well, so I've made a lot of movies in the past, and I made a lot of Lifetime and Hallmark movies in particular, which are, while I love them and I'm very grateful for the work that I had, they are movies about domestication of women or women in jeopardy. Those are the two genres for women. And so that's not my strength. I like to show women and men in a very positive, strong role where they're able to be contributing members of society who aren't living there wallowing in self-pity because nobody loves them. And so, or learning how to bake a cupcake or worried about their nanny stealing babies. So we wanted to make sure that we had strong men and women, that the biggest, the concern of, because our content focuses on romance, the concern is really like, how do these two people who connect, how are they communicating, how are they compromising, what is that connection, and ultimately, everything about Passionflix is about removing shame from sexuality, focusing on positive relationships, focusing on communication, connection, and compromise. That's our mandate. And so that's a very different way of looking at content than just trying to churn things out for a different kind of audience. So.
And just to let you know that they're quite steamy, some of these scenes. And once I was sitting between Tosca and the main lead actress, and I just looked at them, I said, what were you thinking?
No, you actually turned to me in the middle of the screening, and she looks at the screen, she looks at me, and she goes, who are you?
Because, but the books are steamy, you know.
Yeah, that book sold over 1 million copies, and as a massive boost for Passionflix as well. And the thing is that there's nothing wrong with intimate situations on film, and it really is a matter of how these movies how they're filmed, right? So if you're making things that are filmed using gratuitous actions, gratuitous nudity, then that's really not what we're about, because it's not really a female gaze type of movie. We focus on what women want to see, what we want to interact with, and want to, again, remove shame from the situation. So the entire platform is focused on being able to encourage women and men to discuss sex, be able to say yes, be able to say no, make it their decision, and have no shame in either one of those answers. But yes, we do have a steamy side of things. We have what we call the barometer of naughtiness, because it's funny. And so it goes 1 through 5, and 1 is Oh So Vanilla, so that's like Pride and Prejudice, which is a romance novel. So we have Oh So Vanilla, 2 is mildly titillating, 3 is passion and romance, 4 is toe curling yumminess, and 5 is not safe for work. Don't watch it at work.
That makes sense. I don't even have to look that up.
No, exactly.
So you got that trademarked, right?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do.
It's really funny.
It's and it's also it helps, I think, to create levity specifically for women who have always been again shamed into hiding their needs or their fears or anything like that, which I think leads a lot to abuse, which maybe is what influenced me in some ways, is to we need to be able to speak about things, and if we are shamed into not speaking about them, then it's going to cause more problems in society. So the more we can open up, communicate, say what we're feeling, what we're wanting, how we're being treated, how we expect to be treated, demanding the way that we want to be treated, then as soon as we have that, I think we'll have a better society. So it's very important for us.
I also think you should have more male subscribers so that they know about romance. That romance bring roses to a woman. That's the easiest way.
I don't know if any of my characters have actually given roses to anyone.
No, but I mean, but they're very romantic. Yeah, they should, though. You're right, they should. But just to be considerate of women, and they are attractive in that way.
They are. We talk about. Sorry, I have a hair right in my face. So we talk about. We have a group of fans, and they call me the Michael Bay of romance, because we have a lot of scenes where two people are just talking. and they're just talking and they're sharing their feelings and they're telling them how I feel and why I feel this way and how do you feel and you feel about this way. Oh, kiss, kiss, kiss. And then I feel this way, I feel that way. And whereas in a more Michael Bay movie, it might be like explosion, big fires, car chase, gun, 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 gun. And it all happens for about 10 minutes. And in our movies, it's 10 minutes of two people talking and sharing.
Do you see that, movies and popular culture, very focused to male desires or what men want to see in film?
Well, I think, this is the conversation with regards to male and female gaze, right? So we have lived most of our lives watching movies made by men. And so we as filmmakers, our only examples and what we've learned by are all male gaze movies. So changing that is difficult. So even finding female filmmakers who are not influenced by the male gaze is hard. So it is a matter of really forcing your way into changing how you want to see people portrayed on screen. And it is different, Female gaze is very different than male gaze. We want to see
also,
two
you
people
have
talking.
female directors. The female leads get the same pay as the men.
Or more.
And they are the lead. And this happened just before the Me Too movement. I mean, that's good timing.
Yeah, it's good. It's good timing. It's also the right thing to do. Men and women should get paid the same for the same work. That's, I think, that. And in our stories, most of the stories are from the female perspective, so they should be the leads in the story. And the men are the eye candy. So that makes things a little different.
Yes.
And romance novels are very popular. I remember growing up, there was a bookmobile that would come to our neighborhood and you'd go rent your book out. But the romance novels, they went out really fast. And even junior high girls start reading these things.
Yeah, you bet. So it's the #1 selling genre in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
I read it when I was married. I read romance novels. They just gave me a little happiness.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's stories about, again, it's these women and men, but they go through this roller coaster of emotions, which we can all tap into, and it validates our emotions, which is very important in a society that tries not to validate any emotions. And so we read them, and then we know at the end that there's these trials and tribulations that these people are going to go through, and at the very end, we have a happy or hopeful ending. And that's not seen very much in today's movies either, right? Most of the time, we're ending a movie with, if you go and look at any of the movies that are playing in theaters now, you're like, man, I would go and see that, but how's it going to end? I mean, is the dog going to die? Is somebody going to get killed? I just don't know what should I prepare myself for emotionally. And if I'm not fully aware that this is going to be a happy or hopeful ending, it's unlikely that I'll go and see that movie, because we have a lot of things to deal with in the world, and I want to, when I'm taking a moment to go and separate and have my suspension of disbelief, I want to come out of it feeling refreshed and happy and hopeful, like I can do something. I don't feel like I'm being crushed and the world's not coming to an end right now.
So it's kind of like the psychology of watching relationships and speaking about it and not ignoring things and then taking it through the movie.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so do you think, with Tesla, people call Tesla fans like a cult sometimes, just super passionate fans. Do you see kind of the same kind of thing with your audience?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And
I believe they're all going to be subscribing now to your podcast.
Yes. But I started their Instagram account. I mean, they started it and then I moved it up because it wasn't doing well enough. And but I had to reply to all these fans. There were so many. And eventually, your hand starts hurting. So when I got it to 30,000, I said, I can't do it anymore, because they ask questions and they just want to know, and then this scene, and then I'm saying, And so now
Yeah.
she has someone else doing it, thank goodness.
So you were
Yeah.
helping her with the Instagram account
yeah.
for Passionflix.
So my mother was the publicist for a while. Now we have one, but you know, but yes, for a long time, my mom was like, "You've got to pay attention to Instagram. You got to get your numbers up." I'm like, "I don't have time to deal with this. I'm trying to make all these movies." And she's like, "I've got this." And then she just would post more, but I wasn't sharing enough photos with her. I wasn't doing all the right
Not
things.
enough BTS.
Yep.
Behind
so
the
now,
scenes,
Now
yeah.
we're working on it. But yeah, we have a strong core group of passionistas, we call them. So these are the hardcore Passionflix fans. The romance community in general is one of the most rabid fan bases out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on any given day, I could do a Facebook Live, and within an hour, 13, 14, 15,000 people have watched it. And that's pretty good for our outreach on Facebook. But yes, we have an amazing group of Passionistas that we call the founding members, which are our first subscribers to Passionflix. They subscribed 6 months before we launched, which showed proof to a lot of investors, which helped us to close our round. Because when you have 3,500 people prepay for 2 years, very similar to a Tesla example. So it's amazing where I learned some of my marketing plan. Like, wonder what I should do for a business. I'll just follow that. As I said, it's not bad to follow Elon. I'm okay with it. I love it. And so, and actually, just before I launched, just speaking of Elon, he's an amazing brother to have when you are starting your own business. He's incredibly supportive and, of course, encouraging of anyone to take risks and go out there and do something and see what you can do to change the world. So I was like, okay, so what kind of advice would you give me then? Here I have you. What's my advice? And he's like, okay, laser focused. Be laser focused on your mission and on the people that you want to serve. That is the most important thing. You serve one group of people. That group is who you're focusing on. And so I make all of my content very specifically for my romance fans. We work very closely with the authors to make sure that this is what they will love. And that's the only way that I know I'm doing a good job. And so I serve them. That is very much so my goal. And the other piece of advice that he gave me was that if he gave me advice, I have to take it. So I was like, great.
How do you say servant leadership? Because I see that in your whole family.
Yeah, thanks.
So how you said you're laser focused in producing something that a group of people love, but is it something that you're loving yourself as well? Because Elon's talking about always make products that, you're not doing these big market surveys. You're making something that you yourself would love, right? So
absolutely. So unfortunately, I am a romance novel fan. So I like to read these books, and I enjoy it. And it's really uplifting for me to make romance content. I love to work with two actors and show how the two of them can have chemistry and how they can show consent and how they can, communicate and navigate a relationship. It's really interesting to me. And each one of these novels is very different. How you navigate that relationship is different to the last relationship. So funny enough, I work a lot with, as male actors, obviously. The women tend to have their, they tend to be pretty put together. The guys, but
Well, they have to take their shirts off.
they do, but abs. But we have a lot of these guys who are like unsure in their relationships and what to do, and almost every single one of them, I think, except for one, although that one, nope. All of them have entered into serious long-term relationships or gotten married directly after working with me. Wow. Which is really interesting. And they have said that they want to start the Tosca School for Gentlemen Callers. So apparently I'm able to help all men. So watch Passionflix.
It's kind of interesting, you having this passion for a different kind of, romance novel film. And Maye, talking in her book about, working as a fashion model her whole life and just continuing even today doing great work. And how you said that, you weren't able, you were only finding, men that were jerks or something like that.
What did you call me, a jerk?
Jerk
You said
magnet.
I'm a jerk magnet.
I'm a jerk, man.
He is a jerk magnet.
So I mean, it's kind of interesting with that and kind of your upbringing and, May kind of finding, comfort and, being independent, raising you guys. Do you see that as kind of influencing the direction you took?
Sure, I think the number one thing that the number one takeaway from that is that you have to be comfortable with yourself. So we're pretty good, all of us actually, the entire family are quite comfortable being alone for the days, that sort of stuff. We're not desperately needy to be around other people, but at the same time enjoy the right company. And it has to be the right company. So I think that's one of the things that I learned from the jerk magnet, is that you don't actually have to hang out and spend time with jerks just so that you don't feel lonely. It's actually, I'm quite comfortable reading a book or hanging out with my dog, as my mom is.
Yeah, I am now.
Yeah,
Yes.
but it is hard, right? Because you get lonely and you just want to be around people, and so then you sort of start making all these exceptions and going, okay, well, I mean, he's not that bad, and it's okay that he only hit me once, and, all these things. You come up with these excuses, and they're excuses to not be alone because you don't want to be by yourself. But I personally think that you can. You love yourself, start spending a little bit more time being with yourself, and then recognizing how important you are, and then recognizing what you deserve in life, and then making sure that you ask for it and that you get it.
Good, and I appreciate you, Mayor, sharing that in your book, just because I think seeing people when they're perfect, I mean, we're like, but when we...
I am Instagram perfect.
You always look great. But seeing the struggle, I mean, it makes people real and relatable, because I think everybody has struggle, and we all go through things, and it lets us, I think like you were saying, the relationship, the communication, hearing about it helps us go, I've been there, I think that looks like a good avenue, or relate, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Relating is...
Yeah, my mom used to say, if you're happier with the man than you are alone, then that's fine. But I was in relationships and I was sad because I was always, too fat, too thin, too ugly, too pretty, too young, too old. I was always being insulted. And I think to myself, geez, the guys I dated, I could have said things to them and would have been really cruel of me. But they were quite happy being cruel to me. But I didn't have, even though, he's really not a good looker, but I'm not going to say that to him.
No, that was what I was there for. Listen, if I'm okay selling a house, I'm okay saying, what are you talking like that for? You can't talk like that.
It's hilarious. I love that.
Yeah, I wish I dated somebody who was as happy to see me as my dog. He really loves to see me when I come home. Yeah.
Well, we
dogs are
love
the
seeing
best.
you on Twitter. I'm like, it's May or even Tosca.
Yeah.
My mom is amazing on Twitter. I actually, I have no fear of anything or anyone saying anything. I hope this doesn't happen. Say mean things about me on Twitter, because my mom will jump right back in there and be like, "Excuse me, don't you talk to my daughter like that?" You're like, okay.
Yeah.
So this brings up a point I did want to ask you about this, because there was a time when you were really like fighting all these guys attacking your
Yes.
family. So like, where does that come from? I'm just
Well, the thing is, of course, I've always protected my kids because they always came first in my life. And then what happens is Elon's doing such good work, with Tesla. I'm so thrilled with it from the beginning when he first started with the idea. And even he wrote a paper on battery storage when he was 22 or something. I have that paper, and solar energy. So he knew about what he wanted to do would be better for the planet. And the media hated him, and they'd have like 5 gas car, fossil fuel type of ads in their program, and they hated Tesla, just hated Tesla, and then they hated Elon, and Kimball and Tosca say, you can't go against the press, they will slaughter you. Well, fortunately, they didn't want to slaughter grandmother, because then Clean Technica started out with this.
they're great.
This is the negative comments about...
The FUD articles, right?
Yeah, the articles. And I'm saying, and I was in London, staying with you, and I couldn't sleep that night because I'd read so many, and then I saw that Clean Clean Technica gave how many negative articles about Tesla that week. And I just said, I'm done with this. I am done with this. They can come after me, but what are they going to do? I'm a grandmother. Okay, so then I started calling out the New York Times, LA Times, Wall Street Journal, Fortune magazine, anything. And I called out the journalist as well. And I said, you know, this you're just doing negative articles, and hashtag clean energy will win. And people liked it.
I was right there with you. I watched you do it. I'm like, oh, go May, and I was helping you. I was like under your tweet.
You're great you're all great on Twitter. You really are amazing. I love what you do.
I come home from filming on set and I'm like, what just happened? I'm on set and suddenly there's a Twitter war. Right, jump on board.
Screens yet? I know we can get our text messages. We just need to get our tweets on our screen.
Yeah. So then that's turned around because people are buying Teslas. Yeah. They're just buying Teslas and they're happy. Look at you driving 17 hours in a Tesla to come here.
On autopilot, I imagine.
Which other car would you want to drive for?
Exactly.
Drive here.
Better than a plane.
I've done it before on non-autopilot, and I mean, the autopilot was really relaxing. It actually helped me stay awake longer.
Yes,
it was great.
So you guys both drive Teslas, right?
Yes.
Model S or?
I have an S and an X.
And I have an S.
You have an S now. I thought you had an X before.
No, I've driven hers.
Oh, so the front puppy, sorry, some people
The front puppy was
wasn't
an
an
S. That was an S, yeah.
Oh, it was an S?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Totally, because I only saw the front.
And my puppy.
Yes, that's true. That was the main part of the shot.
Yeah.
It's such a cool shot.
Yeah.
What was, weren't they saying about how people were planting in the front for plantaseedday?
Oh yeah, they're going to
really?
plant. They're going to put plants in the
front?
In the front.
There you go.
Somebody
Good picture
on
idea.
Twitter's doing that, and
That's
and
cool.
then Kimball's saying, oh, they should put LED lights into the front so that they can close close it
And then
still grow plants.
That's a great
That's very
idea.
great.
There you go.
So there's another
use
tip.
for
I
your
want to see some
front.
photos of that.
Yes.
I like that actually, just where the engine used to be,
Yeah.
just planting
Yeah,
seeds.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of beautiful.
It is very beautiful.
Very green.
Nice.
Because Square Roots Grow, another one of Kimball's companies, is where they're building vertical gardening in shipping containers. So I've been to that, of course, as well, and photographed on Instagram. And then, so then the vegetables are grown and herbs in a vertical way, using very little water and no pesticides.
Yeah,
So
in
that
these,
could be the
in these
future.
cargo crates.
Yeah,
Wow.
containers.
Containers.
Are they teaching vertical gardens with the children yet?
Not for children.
No, not for children.
But
No,
they
no.
do have the whole thing is, I think it's a 2-year curriculum as well with Square Roots that
wow.
they can actually teach these people that want to have their own farms. They can teach them how to basically manage a farm inside one of these crates, and maybe it's a 1-year curriculum, I'm not entirely sure, but it's like managing a 2-acre farm.
And it's like teaching entrepreneurship, because then that is your farm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And from that, after they've managed that for a couple of years, then they're able to apply to get grants from the government in order to go and start their own actual farm. Because from what I understand, you, and we might just want to double check some of these things. This is talk from Kimball. But you can't actually manage a farm unless you, or get any subsidies from the government unless you've actually managed a farm. But you can't manage a farm because no one's going to give you a farm to manage because you have no upbringing being in farms. And seeing as our farmers are aging and the people that have been brought up on farms are leaving, going to the cities, but our young children now are actually wanting to become farmers because they love food transparency, but they're not able to get into that industry. So Square Roots provides them with the ability to actually learn the trade and then get qualified in order to get the subsidies so that they can go and buy a piece of land and then become organic farmers.
That's excellent.
Kimball's pretty much, soup to nuts when it comes to food transparency.
Because it's really hard. I mean, even with the fertilizers and the pesticides and the organic to get the soil approved and everything, it's...
Yeah.
Then you have that, say, fresh herbs that you just cut and you can take them right to the restaurants.
Yeah.
Because, and then to get it fresh and not like shipping for 3 weeks, it's a different flavor.
And that's what Kimball, his restaurant in Colorado, it's farm to table, right?
That's right. Well, he has 13 restaurants now, right?
Yeah, maybe
13
16.
Or 16 now, yeah.
I don't know.
And they're in Chicago and Colorado.
Memphis.
Yeah, but it's all farm to table. So wherever he goes and opens a restaurant, he has to source the local farms first to make sure that he can actually bring in fruits and vegetables and animal products.
I saw the video of him in a helicopter going around looking at different farms and the way they were
That's
all
so Kimball.
cut out.
Yeah.
It was really cool, but he's right, because the monopoly on the farms in the industry back in DC is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So as his mom, have you ever seen Kimball take off the hat? Or?
Oh yes, no, yes, but you know,
Only in private.
yeah. Oh no, sometimes he takes off his hat, but he loves that hat. But my dad always wore a hat, and even in the Kalahari, of course, that makes sense to wear a hat in the Kalahari. But he was a cowboy in Saskatchewan, so Kimball was. I was pregnant with Tosca when my dad died in a plane accident, but so Kimball was one. Because I had 3 kids in 3 years and 3 weeks. And so that's why, and he doesn't even know that his granddad wore a hat. And then so now he's got the framed pictures of my dad in a cowboy
It's really
hat.
sweet.
And Kimball really loves his hat.
He
just
loves it. Loves being a cowboy.
And you know, he's 6'4", so it's not like he's a short person and needing a hat.
It's really great anytime you go to any large event, though, if you don't know where my family is. I'm just like, hang on a second, look up, I see a hat, go. Yeah.
And your dad, he was a bull breaker too, right?
Yeah, he was a rodeo, he was a chiropractor, but then it was the Canadian Depression, so he would give free adjustments to patients, and then they would bring whatever they're growing. So that's about how you do it. But if you broke in the horses, then you could actually get some payment, and then he could support his family. But he did knock all his teeth out. Because have you seen what it's like when, we went and saw one once, and I thought, whoa, that's pretty rough.
Bull riding?
Oh, it was
Horses.
actually horses. He broke in horses.
Oh,
yeah.
breaking a wild horse. Well, it's
Yeah.
probably the same thing.
Yeah. They get thrown from the horse a lot. So I guess he always had false teeth when I knew him. But anyway.
Just give himself his own adjustments afterwards.
Yeah.
So, May,
Oh, yes, Viv, you should say something.
so people always ask you what's the most important piece of advice you gave to your children, right? But what's the most important advice you received from your children? From Tosca, Kimball, Elon, maybe even your grandkids? I don't know.
What do you think? Are you giving me advice?
I think most of the time, if you're going to take any advice from us, it's probably like, go for it, it's going to be okay.
I know my kids support me in everything I do, and they're very helpful. They were very helpful to me as a single mother running my own business from my home, because you all behaved nicely, did your own homework, went to school and back on your own.
Signed our own excuse notes when we didn't want to go to school.
Yeah.
Forged signatures.
So your kids have all gone on to do, amazing things, start businesses. Was there ever a kind of a moment when you were raising them that you thought like, these kids might be something here,
No, I always thought my children were brilliant. I thought Elon was a genius, but my other 2 are brilliant. And I used to tell people, and they just would say, "You're such a mom."
I concur, yeah.
So now I
They
don't
are.
say anything because it's bragging.
Kimball isn't a genius?
Yeah.
Elon's a genius. We're totally okay with that.
And we're okay because with that goes a huge responsibility.
Yeah,
Huge responsibility. I don't think we want that.
I'm good.
And I don't need the media to hate me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a
We
very
talked
small
about-
group of media. I mean, like the rest of the world loves him. So
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
But they don't hate him so much now.
Yeah.
Because they're all driving Teslas.
But I think also, it's interesting. We were always brought up with this idea that I never really knew that I had to go and get a job, because I've never seen. My mom never really had to go and get a job. She always worked. She worked from home, and so she continually started new businesses every time she went somewhere, and was always the top of her field every time she did something. So our example was just seeing our mom work her own business, and then we worked for her, and so it never really occurred to me too much to go and get a job. I never thought, I've got to put together a resume and then go and get a job from someone else. It was more, okay, I know how to do this. How do I make that my living?
She was the original Musk entrepreneur that inspired all of you guys. That makes a lot of sense now that I think about it, yeah.
Good initiative,
Yeah.
definitely. So you guys you see what you want, you just do it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, it's not easy. And there are times when you're sitting there going, what am I doing, man? This is like crazy. I should just go and get a job. And make this somebody else's stress.
I don't know how you could do that.
I don't know how I would do that. It would be really difficult, I think, at this point. I mean, can you imagine if Elon, Kimball, and I just suddenly like, yeah, we're good. We're going to go and get jobs somewhere. I mean, I love it. I think it's really important. But at the same time, I don't know how we would fit in with that, within that ecosystem. Because we just live in this entrepreneurial world. And we live in this with this feeling of like, hang on a second, that doesn't seem right. We should be able to change that. Just change it. Let's change it. And everyone's like, what? You can't change that? And they're like, oh, no. Yep, again. Let's change that now. Okay, pivot. And then you just change it. Yeah. You just do what you can to change it. The people that work with me love it. It was like, what are you going to do now? I think let's start a wine brand. Let's just do that. You can't do that? Of course I can. We're going to launch in September. Make it happen. Go.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah, when I moved to Toronto, I was a research officer at the University of Toronto, and I said, I'd like it for 10 hours a week, and the rest of the time, because I need time for my private practice and modeling, and then I'm lecturing 2 nights a week at a modeling school, and I lecture 2 nights a week at a college, and so then 10 hours a week, and they made it. And then, but by being on staff, my kids could have gone there for free, and then they didn't. They all went their own way.
We could have gone to U of T for free.
But you knew where you wanted to go.
Yeah, I didn't like the weather in Toronto, so it was very cold.
We had one coat, we'd found a warehouse in Johannesburg that sold coats. Cheap, nasty coats we wore.
Well, we didn't have any money. Like, we arrived from South Africa with nothing. So here's the daughter that sold all the stuff. We arrived in Canada, we had nothing. We were very poor. And so 3 days after arriving, I had my first job. In Toronto, I worked at Harvey's, which is a fast food hamburger place in Toronto.
It was next door to the rental. We had a 1-bedroom rental.
Yeah, and so I went in there and I said, I'd like to work here. And they said, okay, well, how many days would you like to work? I said, I can work every day. And they said, no, you can't work every day.
It's not
legal. You have to have a day off. I was like, okay, I'll have 1 day off. And they said, okay, which day do you want off? I said, Sunday. Guess people take Sundays off. And they're like, okay, how many hours a day do you want to work? So I said, I'll work all day. And they said, no, you can't work all day. You can only work a maximum of 8 hours. I was like, okay, I'll work 8 hours. And they went, okay. So I worked 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, 3 days after arriving in Canada, because there's nothing else to do. And
because I was at the university the whole time.
Yeah, and then and the first thing, coming from South Africa, where we had a very nice house and a very different way of living, and then the first thing they said is, okay, you scrub the floors, take out the garbage, clean the toilets, all those things. And I was like, wow, all right, here you go. And you do that for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I was only there for a month and a half or something like that. But by the end of it, I was assistant manager of the drive-thru. I was very excited. They're like, I can't believe you're working that much. And I'm like, oh, man, it's got to be done. You got to clean the toilets. You got to do all these things. And then, made my way up to pouring soft drinks.
So you're all excited to come to America. You saw all your stuff, and then you're just scrubbing toilets.
And I'm scrubbing toilets. But it was needed. We had to survive at that point.
And I think this is one of the kind of misconceptions. I think saw some people saying on the internet like, oh, Elon was always rich, and he's only has this success because he was always wealthy. And you guys really kind of struggled for a while just to try and make ends meet, pay the rent, figure things out by yourself.
Yeah.
Were you playing happy? You were playing musical couch, weren't you? Like taking turns sleeping on the couches.
Tosca had a bedroom and I had a bedroom, and the third bedroom between Elon, Kimball, and Peter, my nephew, they had to alternate. Yeah. But then Tosca made me buy an expensive carpet. So that's why we could sleep on it.
But we could only get the expensive carpet if we pulled up the current carpet ourselves, because we couldn't afford to have somebody remove the bad carpet.
So you pulled it up and installed the new one?
So somebody else had to install the new one, but we could pull up the carpet. And so, of course, my mom it's horrible and hard, by the way, to pull up carpet that's been stapled to the ground. And so we're pulling it up, and that my mom actually cut her hand really badly. And that was a big concern because my mom's Mom was a hand model,
I'm a
and
hand
that's
model.
how you.
Yeah.
That's how we made money. That's how she made money for us to survive and have food. And suddenly we're like, cut her hand. Oh my God, what's that going to happen? So that level of stress was pretty high. And there I'm 15, going. Now I'm working at Loblaws. I'm a cashier. I'm making $7.25 an hour. I'm good. I'll help. So I upgraded from Harvey's to cashier,
A grocery store.
a grocery store clerk. But yeah, I mean, we did not come from money, and every single penny that we had went into how we can survive that week, and how my mom made sure there was always food in the house for us, and that we all had a home. And so it was, yes, my mom and myself in this 3-bedroom apartment, rent-controlled apartment in Toronto.
But when we talk about expensive, so 3 bedrooms, hey, and the carpet I wanted I could afford was $200 to carpet the whole apartment. So Tosca comes with me and she says, no, we need it plusher because we have to sleep on it. So I splurged and we did it for $300, and they came and they did the whole thing.
So that's the expensive carpet at that point, But we didn't.
3 bedrooms
But we
and
had
a hallway and a living room and a dining room.
Yeah, but we had so now Kimball, Peter, and Elon were in there with me, and then Russell, my other cousin, came over, and he didn't come to Toronto so much.
No, he was in Vancouver.
He came to Vancouver, and he didn't have any money, so he slept. I had a dorm in my living at UBC, and it was this small little dorm room, and we put a little mattress next door. And so my cousin, who came from South Africa, just slept on the dorm mattress. So I slept on the floor, and we just sort of hopped over each other. But when you travel when you move to another country and you have no money and you're an immigrant, you do what you need to support the family and survive. And fortunately, after many years of a lot of hard work and dedication, we are now on this podcast. We've made it.
I think a lot of the best business stories and people who've done really well successfully are immigrants. I mean, you read about so many different of them, or even people who went through the Depression or something like that. Yeah.
I think there's this need to survive, right? And to prove yourself and to find your place in your new land or new world. But I think that even if we'd stayed in South Africa, we probably would have had a very similar career, I imagine.
Very driven. All of you are very driven.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting in your book. You talked a lot about your modeling and how at one point, they just kind of said, well, we don't have any work for you. And some people said, well, we're trying to book you. They said, well, we don't have any work for you. They didn't like your look or something like that. And you decided to go gray with your hair and just continue modeling. So was interested in kind of your thinking on why you continued modeling, why you're still modeling after all this time when so many people would feel self-conscious or feel like, I can't wear this, it's too much.
I don't think so much about it. I just like working. And I'm amazed at how excited people are to have a woman in their 70s model for them. Yay!
But an amazing example to women as well, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, it was always part-time because I was a dietitian for the practice, giving talks around the world on entrepreneurship as well as various nutrition-related diseases like diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, cancer, any of those that I've studied. And then I also taught at a private school. So I didn't think that my modeling would take off like it did, but social media is really what got it going. Yeah.
I remember, back to what you were saying about seeing what you want and going for it. The modeling agency that I think he's talking about in the book.
Yes.
They telling
blackballed me. And Tosca says that happens with actors. Somebody comes in looking like Tom Cruise, you sign them on and then you don't send them out.
That is interesting. But they told you they wouldn't release you from the contract. You finally went in there and you demanded they release you.
I sat there and I wouldn't leave.
Yeah, and that was kind of a theme in your life. You realized that you just demand. You just tell them what
I had
you
nothing
want.
to lose.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Because they said white hair will never sell. And as I say, within 3 months I was on a billboard in Times Square, a billboard in Madison Square Gardens. I had editorials flying to Montreal for a front cover, and campaigns, and everybody said to me, we've been trying to book you for years and you were never available. And I'm still here. I was in Milan, and they said, "Oh, yeah, we always wanted you, and now we've got you." Yeah.
And now to come full circle, while we were younger going, hey, that's my mom. Now you have her grandkids going, hey, that's my grandma. That's my grandma. You're like, no. I'm like, no, that's my grandma.
I'm 22, and you had your kids quite early. I think you had Elon at 23. So being such a young mom, are there any challenges? Or I guess there are challenges, but what are the things that make make things more challenging for a woman to have children at such a young age, and how did you cope with that?
Well, first of all, it's easier to fall pregnant in your 20s. That I found out. And I think it's better to have children when you are young and stupid, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot
I
of work.
am very glad that I had children when I was not young and stupid. I'm very glad that I waited and I had them at the appropriate time when I, have a little bit more of a head on my shoulders and I know who I am. I think I prefer the older mom.
So there you go. You've got two opinions. Because now I'm so young and I have old children.
Old children.
Yeah. So, I guess you decide what you want to do, or you don't decide what you want to do. I didn't decide to have children early. I just fell pregnant very easily.
That's cool. And you've done so much in your life. Is there anything that you'd like to try still and that you haven't done yet?
Well, I still want to travel the world a lot more. I love it when I go for a modeling job or a speaking engagement in a new city like Kiev or Beirut or Budapest, and then I stay an extra couple of days and explore the city. I like that.
Do any people recognize you there, come up to you?
Yes, sometimes
That's
they
cool.
do. Yeah, especially when they've had billboards of me everywhere. Then I usually have 3 bodyguards around me, and in my rider, which is in my contract, they have to be handsome.
No.
I'm only joking, but they are so handsome. And so, no, that's my joke. But yeah, I have bodyguards, but I don't mind when women come up and they just want a selfie while I'm walking in the streets.
Yeah, I actually think it's quite an honor and a privilege, actually,
it really is.
that people find what we are doing to be relevant to them and love what we're doing, and that they want to meet us, and that it's important for them to have a memento and a picture of us with them. And I think we get just as much out of it as they do, and it's really quite an honor, I think, that we're able to have that connection and have those people that are so excited about it.
Although the last runway show I did, there were
for the crazy
150 young models and then me, and so I had my private room. Because when I step out, they all want selfies, and you can only do so many before the show and so many afterwards, and then people do actually have to take me away. But I said, I'm happy to do selfies. No, they kind of forming a crowd and pushing each other, and so then they have to take me away. And that happens with audiences too. And after I've given a talk, they rush the stage. Yeah. But it's still a privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah, really great. At Passionflix premieres, then she gets rushed.
And you go to those. I see you. You go to the SpaceX. You go to the Passionflix. You go to the Square.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
She's our #1 fan.
I love it.
You must be busy with all the companies your kids have started.
Yeah, but when they
There's a lot of events to go to.
I know
We're at the point where we're like, hang on a second, Mom's coming to my event. No, she's coming to mine.
And she's this supermodel, so it's perfect.
Exactly.
No, sorry, I have a job.
We're like, yeah, this is actually getting kind of annoying. Initially, just even a couple of years ago, my mom was this always available babysitter and available at all the premieres. And now suddenly it's like, I'm sorry, I'm off to so-and-so, I'm off to Kiev, I'm off to wherever you are, I'm going to do Fashion Week in Milan. You're like, yeah, but I wanted to go away for the weekend. Can you please come look after my kids? No, too busy. Which is great.
Great time, yeah.
So Vincent had asked a question because you brought up these amazing individuals, your family. But is there anything that you would have maybe done differently if you had the chance, or any, regrets, I guess, is his question.
I don't know what I could have done differently, because after my divorce, 9 years, I had 11 years of lawsuits, and but there wasn't a way to get out of it. I don't know.
Except by moving to another country.
And then when I moved to Toronto, I wasn't scared anymore, and I didn't. I just didn't have that gorilla on my back or whatever. Oh,
that was one. So after my parents got divorced, my father sued my mother every year for custody and maintenance.
Just to be a pain?
Yes, to bankrupt her, ultimately to force her to come back to him, which she never did, thankfully. Appreciate that. So as soon as, so part of the selling the house and moving to Canada, motivation was we would get away from that. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as we left the country, he couldn't sue us in Canada.
Yeah.
Great. Did you see a big difference in your mom in her disposition after that, just moving away from it? Because you said you felt less stressed. The gorilla was off your back.
Yeah, well, absolutely. There were no lawsuits and she wasn't crying at home. That made a big difference.
Do you think that was a big part of why you did that as well? Like
probably looking back at it, there was a motivation to get away from a lot of negative things that were in our lives, and so we just needed to get out. And South Africa was really, things were starting to change in South Africa. Things were Mandela was released in February right afterwards. But so but before that, we didn't really know what was going to happen. We needed to get out of that country and move to a country that really supports entrepreneurs, or ultimately our guide was always ultimately our goal was always to get to America. We didn't know how we would get to America, but eventually that was what we were hoping to get to, and so Canada was our first step towards that.
You raised some great kids, May.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
We're a great mom.
When you look at all your grandkids, do you kind of see some of the same spark as you saw in your kids, or?
Well, I think all my grandkids they're all so different, eh?
So different.
All so different. But they're all so nice, they're polite, they love playing with each other. The 6-year-olds will play with the 16-year-olds, but now they're 7-year-olds and 17-year-olds. But they will play together, and they're all nice to each other, so that makes me happy.
We saw the video of one of them playing the piano with you. That was beautiful.
He's a little genius boy.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really interesting to hear them, because my kids will never know a world where their uncle isn't the one that's building rockets and cars. Their uncle is the one that owns a number of restaurants or plants food, or basically this whole philanthropy of food transparency. And their mom makes movies, so all sorts of movies and any kind of entertainment. If you want to break into that field, if you want to make a certain kind of movie, that's basically what I can do. And then my mother is a model and with 2 Master of Science degrees, and she's on every billboard everywhere, and she's all these things. So our children live in this world now where everywhere they go, they're going to see one of us somewhere.
They're going to be reminded that anything's possible.
And be reminded that anything is possible. So right now I have my 7-year-old twins who are thinking that they should run for president as a duo,
Nice.
as the two of them together, because they feel that
I like it.
The United States should have both a male and a female president that have learned how to negotiate with each other through their entire upbringing.
Or maybe on Mars or something as well.
Exactly. One could be Mars, one could be Earth and Mars.
Yes, I love it. Cool. Well, so we've been going for a while. Do you guys want to do some closing thoughts? I mean, yeah, just don't want you to get too tired.
Oh yeah. Well, all right. Sure. Yeah. So everybody go plant a seed. Plantaseedday, March 19th. We got to break some records. Use the hashtag. Definitely go read Maye's book. I mean, it's an amazing story, honestly. Like, you see these people, and people who, maybe have heard about your family and some of the things that they've done, or seen you on social media. It all seems so put together. You don't think about these people having problems and struggles in their life. And it's definitely amazing to hear the story. It's got some good advice. If you're into romance novels, definitely check out Passionflix.
You've watched them. You watched
I
one.
did. I watched one of them last night. So, I'd say, maybe I shouldn't have said that on the air. But, it's good. $6. It's all good. Check it out. What do you got to lose?
Definitely. And I watched one of them, and I love your directing. I love the way that everything was beautiful. It was The Will, I think, was the one I was watching. But excellent job. And I had watched some Hallmarks before, and I do prefer what you put out. I thought it was a lot better. Because I think like what you were saying, and the Hallmarks in general, it's a very similar pattern that's very guessable, but I think your movies are really excellent.
Disrupting the Hallmark film.
Yes. And I loved your book, May, and I totally agree. The transparency is completely authentic, and I love hearing the real story of, because it's not always, easy to relate to perfectly polished, which you are always perfectly polished, it appears. But I love hearing everything, all the different facets of you. It was beautiful.
Thanks.
You're always so upbeat and put together, glamorous, and it's just amazing to hear your story and see these amazing kids you raised through all this chaos that was happening. And you said that men read it, and I was reading it and I was thinking about my own life too.
Yes.
And I think there are lessons there for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely very inspiring. I was actually listening to it on the way down here again for the third time, I think. So, yeah, I love it because there's this little bits in there that you go, wow. And it's just like a great movie that you can watch over and over and you get something new out of it every time.
And that's next, the movie of your life.
Great, absolutely. Can I get the rights?
I have a choice.
Yeah, you should make a movie out of it.
Exactly.
We were talking about like how cool would it be to have a movie like with Elon story, but why not the whole family? Yeah. That'd be awesome because that's really why we want to do this. We usually, we're a Tesla podcast, but you're the mother of invention, right?
No Tesla.
Yeah, you used to have that mother of invention as your Twitter background, right?
Well, that's The Economist that did that
The Economist,
one.
right.
The funny thing is, it's another story though.
Please tell
They
us.
were coming to interview Kimball about the Big Green and the gardens and his farm-to-table restaurants. And he said, oh, and my mom's a dietitian. She'll be in town because it's just before Thanksgiving, so maybe we should interview her too. And then we'll do a photo shoot with both of us. So they said, okay. So then they come and then they interview us and then they do the photo shoot. Meanwhile, Kimball hated the photo shoot.
What, did they make him take off his hat?
No, 12 locations, pose, now stand, now smile, now look at the chickens, now hold this fruit. And he says, I've got a new admiration for you. Is this what you do? No, that's modeling. That's modeling. And then the journalist, the reporter, emailed Kimball and said, I'm really, really sorry. I don't know how to say this, and I really loved the interview with you, but it's going to be more about your mom. And so he thinks that's hilarious. He says, don't invite your mother into your interview in future. And so it was they made it the mother of invention because he thought my story was cooler.
So like ready to take a picture, like, that looks great. Can you just take a step to the left? Look, it just looks good. It's like...
I love it. Well, yeah, we just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And did you have any closing thoughts you want to share?
I'm
with
just
anyone?
thinking that it's going to be a really fun podcast. It's going to be happy things when you want people to plant vegetables, when you want to read and get some fun advice, and when you can watch a romance movie. So when you have time, you've got 3 lovely things to do.
Yes, Plantaseedday, March 19th.
And don't forget the hashtag. Yeah, exactly.
Hashtag Plantaseedday.
All right. Well, thank you. Third Row Tesla Podcast signing off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.